Welcome to 1189, an online Bible commentary. My name is Tyler Marston, and today we're taking a look at Leviticus chapter 8. The first few chapters of Leviticus have dealt with the sacrificial system and the mechanics of making these offerings, while the last two have shifted a little bit to talk about the role of the priests in making those rituals. This chapter will show us the ordination of Aaron and his sons as the first priests of Israel. It reminds us of the transformative nature of God's love for us and our responsibility to live out the gospel to the rest of the world. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take Aaron and his sons with him, and the garments, and the anointing oil, and the bull of the sin offering, and the 2 rams, and the basket of unleavened bread, and assemble all the congregation at the doorway of the tent of meeting." So Moses did just as the Lord commanded him. When the congregation was assembled at the doorway of the tent of meeting, Moses said to the congregation, "This is the thing which the Lord has commanded to do." So God calls for Aaron and his sons to have a special ordination service as the first priests of Israel. The ceremony included anointing oil, a bull, 2 rams, and a basket of unleavened bread, representing all of the different types of sacrifices the people could give to God, those being fragrance offerings, burnt offerings, and grain offerings. And the details here are carried over from Exodus 29, where God commanded Moses on Mount Sinai to go through with this anointing ceremony. Now, Exodus 40 alluded to this ceremony happening, but now we're getting the full details of how everything went down. Then Moses had Aaron and his sons come near and washed them with water. He put the tunic on him, and girded him with the sash, and clothed him with the robe, and put the ephod on him, and he girded him with the artistic band of the ephod, with which he tied it to him. And he placed the breastpiece on him, and in the breastpiece he put the Urim and the Thummim. He also placed the turban on his head, and on the turban at its front he placed the golden plate, the holy crown, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Moses decks out Aaron in all of the fancy garments that were instructed to be built in Exodus 28 and were actually sewn together in Exodus 39. There was a tunic with a robe on top, with an ephod, which is sort of like an apron, on top of that. There was a breastpiece that was tied to the ephod as the outermost layer, and the priest also wore a sash and a turban on his head that was secured in place with a gold band. Now we remember how all of these garments are covered in symbols portraying the priest as representing God in the eyes of the people and representing the people in the eyes of God. The Urim and the Thummim, which were placed in the breastpiece, were 2 stones that were used to discern the will of God. Moses then took the anointing oil and anointed the tabernacle and all that was in it, and consecrated them. He sprinkled some of it on the altar 7 times, and anointed the altar and all of its utensils, and the basin and its stand to consecrate them. Then he poured some of the anointing oil on Aaron's head, and anointed him to consecrate him. Next Moses had Aaron's sons come near, and clothed them with tunics, and girded them with sashes, and bound caps on them, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Moses anoints Aaron and the tabernacle and its furnishings with the holy anointing oil, and this was described in Exodus 40. And by the way, this is the same oil that's been used in some of the sacrifices that were described in the first chapters of Leviticus. Aaron is anointed 7 times, calling back to Genesis 1 and 2, the 7 days of creation, along with all of the repeated Sabbath imagery. Aaron's sons are also anointed as priests when they're dressed in their clothes. Now, anointing someone with oil will go on to become a symbol of God's unique calling and favor on a person. It's used in places like 1 Samuel 16 and Psalm 23. But it will also become associated with the idea of a Messiah, which comes from the Hebrew word for anointed one. The Messiah is this future priest king who is referred to in places like Psalm 2. He's prophesied to liberate Israel and benevolently rule over God's entire creation. Of course, these priests aren't real messiahs. I mean, you can see Aaron's role in Exodus 32 in the golden calf. They have sin that needs to be forgiven, and they need to be in fellowship with God. That's why verses 14 through 21 of this chapter show the bull being offered as a sin offering on behalf of the priest. It's all done according to the instructions given in Leviticus chapter 4. Meanwhile, the ram is offered as a peace offering according to the instructions given in Leviticus chapter 3. And it shows that before the priests can lead the people towards godliness, they need to be forgiven of their own sin. They need to atone for it. And they need to pursue peace and fellowship with God. Then they can get to their priestly responsibilities of pointing others to do the same thing. Then he presented the second ram, the ram of ordination, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram. Moses slaughtered it and took some of its blood and put it on the lobe of Aaron's right ear and on the thumb of his right hand and on the big toe of his right foot. He also had Aaron's sons come near, and Moses put some of the blood on the lobe of their right ear, and on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot. Moses then sprinkled the rest of the blood around on the altar. Now this third and final sacrifice, this second ram, is a sacrifice unique to priestly ordinations. Other sacrifices included blood being sprinkled on the altar, and sometimes in the tabernacle. But the blood from this ram is sprinkled on the priests themselves. This is again a callback to Passover. God bringing deliverance through the sacrifice of an animal's life, that is, its blood. But the symbolism for that deliverance shouldn't just be applied to objects and furnishings of the tabernacle. That might be a recipe for future idolatry. The priests were meant to be living embodiments of God's love and deliverance for the people. That's why the blood is sprinkled on them. And it's sprinkled on their ears, their hands, and their feet. It's to show the way God's calling should change the way they listen, the way they work, and the way they walk. Verses 25 through 30 give more instructions about this ordination offering. It includes calls to cut up the ram and its fat portions, to offer them as a wave offering along with the unleavened bread, and then to offer them on the altar as well. At that point, Aaron and his sons, as well as their garments, are all anointed with oil again. And Aaron and his sons are officially consecrated as the priests of Israel. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, "Boil the flesh at the doorway of the tent of meeting, and eat it there together with the bread which is in the basket of the ordination offering, just as I commanded, saying, Aaron and his sons shall eat it. The remainder of the flesh and of the bread you shall burn in the fire. You shall not go outside the doorway of the tent of meeting for 7 days, until the day that the period of your ordination is fulfilled, for he will ordain you through 7 days. The Lord has commanded you to do as has been done this day, to make atonement on your behalf. At the doorway of the tent of meeting, moreover, you shall remain day and night for 7 days, and keep the charge of the Lord, so that you will not die. For so I have been commanded." Thus Aaron and his sons did all the things which the Lord had commanded through Moses. Now the ceremony is concluded with the new priests literally consuming God's holiness through eating his sacrifices. And this all kicks off a 7-day period where the priests have to stay inside the tabernacle. It's a replaying of Exodus 24, where Moses spent 7 days living in the presence of God before actually hearing from him. Of course, it's also a Sabbath cycle, pointing to the 7 days of creation, and this new reality where Aaron and his sons are the priests of Israel. And we see that Aaron and his sons are obedient in all of these offerings and sacraments and rituals. In the same way, we should be obedient to whatever it is that God is calling us to do. We are instructed to work like the priests in letting the world know who God is. He should be changing the way that we listen, the way that we work, the way that we walk. And we're to embody God's love and mercy. We need to let others know that they can find it in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Thanks for watching 1189. I hope you have a good day, and God bless.